everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric here with AJ in Austin, Texas. Today is Wednesday, November 8th, 2017, and this is episode 195. Good morning, AJ.
Good morning, sir. Got a good show today. Got some. This is a much better news and updates week than what we've had the past couple weeks. It's been a little bit slow, but we've got some good stuff to share. And before we get into that, do we want to share with our listeners a minor change to our schedule?
We moved to the primetime slot. This is going to be the last Wednesday podcast, at least for a while. We are going to be moving the show to Thursday morning, give ourselves a little bit more time to get a jump start on the news, especially for each week. Nothing else is going to be changing for now, but
I think it'll ultimately
Thursdays.
help us make a little bit better show where we don't get squeezed on the weekend as much trying to get the audio to our audio people to produce the show. So this should give us one extra day of prep. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, we told them now, but I'm sure we're going to say Wednesday for at least another few weeks, just how to force a habit. But show's going to be up Thursday next week. And until further notice.
Yeah. What do you say we get into it, man? You want to take the lead on some point alchemy stuff we've got here with some transfer, promotion, bonus, ratios changing.
So this week's top story is about buying miles. This is especially relevant for folks that want to fly business class and don't have a ton of points. We've got a way to book potentially heavily discounted business class tickets. This is pretty rare, the opportunity that's available this month. Lots of times there's different promotions for buying miles or different promotions for transferring miles. The reason this one is special is because there are two different opportunities, one from United and one from a couple of different hotel programs, actually, that are overlapping. And so that basically just means that we're going to be able to stack these bonuses. But this is something you have to act somewhat quickly on. And so I did want to start out by mentioning that the opportunity that we're going to focus on is sort of the easy way, the 80-20, if you will, of minimizing your effort and still getting a really good deal. But I did want to mention that there's a couple of other ways to do this, and we're going to have some notes in the show notes, a couple of links that talk about other ways to leverage these opportunities that are going on right now. So basically, the main story here is that Choice Hotels program is currently offering a bonus on purchase points. This one is the one with the earlier deadline. So through November 12th, so you've got about 4 more days to take advantage. You can either get a 30, 40, or 50% bonus on purchased Choice Privileges points. Now, to make things clear and easy, we're going to stick with the assumption that you're getting the lower end of this bonus. So all the numbers that we're going to run out today are going to be based on the 30% bonus. So just keep in mind, if you get lucky, you maybe got a 40 or 50% targeted offer for Choice Privileges. You might be actually able to buy miles even cheaper. So that's bonus number one, is Choice Privilege points. You're purchasing at a 30% bonus. The second opportunity is that United Airlines, through the end of the month, through November 30th, has a bonus on hotel miles transferred into the Mileage Plus program. The bonus is 30%, and the maximum number of points that you can earn from the bonus is 25,000. So there is a cap. This actually does max out. So going back to Choice points, and now that I've mentioned the United offer, I think you guys probably know where I'm going, that there's some other ways to do this besides just with Choice points. So we're going to focus on that one because it's pretty straightforward and easy, but the United offer applies to pretty much all the hotel programs. So if you've got SPG points, if you've got Marriott points, there can be some really good ways to take advantage of the 30% United offer where hotel miles transferred in are going to get that 30% bonus. Okay, so back to Choice points. Normally, you have to turn 5,000 points into 1,000 United, which is not a very good deal. They currently have a kind of bonus where you're getting transferring 5,000 points generates 2,500 United points. So now we're at a 2-to-1 ratio. And if you consider the 30% bonus from United, you're going to end up with 3,250 United miles for every 5,000 Choice points. So I guess to put it in context here, as far as how the limit works, because of that 25,000 max on the number of bonus United miles, it means that every 5,000 points you transfer from Choice is going to generate about 750 bonus miles. In other words, the maximum number of Choice points you can transfer, taking advantage of the 30% United bonus, is 165,000. So anything over that, if you end up needing more than, and that's going to result in 107,000 United points. So after we kind of get through the details of this, if you need more than 107,000 United points, the ratio is going to be a little bit crappier.
Right.
But that's still a lot of points and definitely worth it in terms of being able to buy some business class tickets at a discount.
Yeah. So, I mean, the long story short here is you can essentially buy 107,000 United miles for just under $1,400, which is a really good deal. So as far as how to take action on this goes, you have to register. So step one, you're going to register for the United bonus. Step two is you're going to buy your Choice points. And the important thing here is, like Eric said, the discount only runs through November 12th. And then the final thing to take note of here is you've got to transfer your points. The official deadline is November 30th. However, we're going to recommend that you transfer your points by November 23rd. We've got some reports taking 4 or 5 days for them to transfer. We want to give you guys a little wiggle room because United wasn't exactly explicit if the bonus is when the points at the United account or when you initiate the transfer. Right. So if you ship those points over to United by November 23rd, you should be safe and have no concerns about getting the bonus ultimately.
All right. So one other thing to mention here, this is pretty important because most times when we recommend buying points or we even talk about it as an option, sort of the cardinal rule is that you want to have a redemption in mind. Cash is king. And if you can turn money into a flight and not have to deal with buying points, it's usually a better deal because all the flights are available. And so the one risk here is that if you end up transferring points, you may have to wait a little while before you can find a redemption. So the best case scenario is to have a redemption in mind. But there's one important thing to be aware of, and that is that United on their website says that the bonus points, again, that's 750 points per 5,000 transferred, may not post immediately. They say they'll post before January 30th, 2018. So there's a significant thing there. Reports are that those bonus points are posting much faster than that. But I think it's fair to assume that if you need the points immediately, you want to deal with doing your calculations at the ratio of 5,000 Choice points is going to give you 2,500 United points. And just forget about those bonus points. Know that they're going to come in later. They're going to be valuable. Right. You can always transfer in Chase points later on to help out with that and utilize those points so they're not stranded. But if you need the points immediately and you're not counting the United bonus right away, it's going to be about $176 for 10,000 United points. If you're going to wait for that United bonus, you just want to take advantage and top up the United account, it's going to be $132 per 10,000 United points. So before we move on here, I want to give a couple of examples, put this in context of what this looks like for business class travel. You can obviously do this for economy travel as well, but most of the prices come out where you're probably better off just buying an economy ticket. So I think buying points in this case is something that you want to do either just to top up because you're a little bit short on a redemption or because you're looking for a business class flight much cheaper than you could buy it for cash. So a few examples here, 60,000 United points, which would cost you $781.50 through this promotion, is going to be, that's a one-way to Europe if you're flying on United Airlines Metal. It's also a business class trip to the southern part of South America. So that's Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Bolivia, basically everything besides Colombia and I think Ecuador. And I don't know if I actually was looking at Guyana and Suriname, and they have like one, if you look at the Star Alliance route map, there's like one airport in all three of those countries that actually is even listed on there. But I think they're in the north.
By the way, is it United or American that considers Manaus, Brazil, northern South America?
Oh man, I want to say that Manaus is in a different category for American, but I could be wrong about that.
Which is really interesting because that means cheaper miles, but flying into Manaus is normally just oddly expensive. So kind of off the theme of what we're talking about here, but pretty interesting. So like you said, Southern South America, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Bolivia, $60K. So that's your $781. And there's some round trip opportunities for that price point.
The shorter ones. So we've got Caribbean round trip. That's going to be $60K. Central America is also $60K round trip. You're not going to have as nice of a business class product for those ones, but still, at $781 for a round trip, you're probably going to do much better, especially for flights to parts of Central America. Costa Rica can be sometimes pretty expensive depending on where you're coming from. So I think there's some good opportunities there. And there is quite a bit of availability on Copa, which is based in Panama City, which is a good jumping point to get to the Caribbean or get to Central America. So those are some good options. Moving up one level, so now we're looking at 70,000 United miles and $910. That's a one-way to Europe if you're flying on a Star Alliance partner. Could be well worth it. There's a lot of them that are much nicer than flights on United. So that's going to give you access to airlines like Lufthansa, airlines like Swiss. There's just a ton of really good Star Alliance partners. So that's good to know. South Africa on United is a one-way in business class. That's a pretty long trip. So that's one, and that's one that's always more expensive.
Do you know off the top of your head what that itinerary would look like? Where do they usually connect?
Yeah, so I would say that I don't think there's any United flights that go direct to South Africa. I might be wrong. There might be a Newark flight.
I feel like there might be one to Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So,
but typically you're going to be connecting. I mean, you got a ton of options in Europe. So you might be on TAP Portugal to get across the pond and connect in Lisbon. You might be on Lufthansa to connect in Frankfurt. That's probably going to be one of the most common ones. Lufthansa has a lot of flights to different places in Africa. Turkish is another good example. That's well aligned. You're going to fly into Istanbul and transit to South Africa. Other options here, you've got northern part of South America at 70,000. That's a round trip, so 35K each way. So that's again Colombia and Ecuador, maybe Manaus. And you got North Asia, that's Hong Kong and China one way. You've got Japan one way. So all those $910 in business class. And then the last one to run through a couple at 80,000 United miles, which is just over $1,000 cash to buy miles. You're looking at South Africa on Star Alliance partners. So actually the South Africa one really can't be done on United Metal only because you're going to end up paying the Star Alliance price anyway. So that's an error on my part because United doesn't have any fifth freedoms to Africa out of Europe. So unless I was wrong and there is actually a Johannesburg Newark route, it's possible. But I want to say Delta is the only airline right now that hasn't canceled their South Africa routes. So anyway, South Africa is going to be 80,000 miles, assuming you have to use a Star Alliance partner. That also includes Australia on United and North Asia. So that's going to be like Hong Kong and China on One World partners. So lots of different options here. Basically, a lot of these trips, if you actually buy business class tickets, are going to cost $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to buy cash. And so you're looking at prices probably under $2,000 for a round trip to most of these destinations.
And another thing to keep in mind here is we're talking about just brute forcing this promotion where if you've already got some United miles or some Chase points, the miles figures we're talking about are the miles you need. So if you already have some, then those numbers could be maybe you're only $300 or $400 away from getting the miles needed to get that great flight and get a great deal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I guess the last thing I wanted to mention here is that, like we said at the beginning, there is an opportunity to do this with SPG. So we mentioned this a couple of shows ago. SPG has currently got a 35% discount on purchase miles. So not quite a bonus, but you're paying less money for the same number of miles. The reason we didn't focus on that one is that SPG caps the number of miles that you can buy at 30,000. So in the context of just needing to top up your United account, buying SPG points could be a good deal. SPG has a really bad transfer ratio to United directly. So the way to do this is to buy SPG, convert SPG into Marriott, and then go with one of their points and hotels and flights packages. The basic idea here is that you need like 90,000 SPG total to max out that part of the promotion. 90,000 converts to Marriott into 270,000, and that can get you a 7-night stay plus 132,000 points.
So this is a really weird deal. So the way to think of it is you can turn your SPG points into Marriott points that can be turned into a 7-night stay and United miles. And if you actually look back at the math, it's pretty good. So you got 90 SPG points will get you 130,000 United miles, plus you get 7 nights of accommodation wherever it is that you're going. So definitely more complicated. However, there's some value there if somebody's willing to dig into it.
Yeah, and if you want to get even more convoluted with that one, you can actually refund the 7-night stay. So you get this 7-night certificate, and if you want, you can wait a few weeks and decide that, call Marriott back and say, hey, I couldn't actually find a resort or whatever for my 7-night stay that was going to work. Can you refund those as miles? They'll give you some miles back. I think if you go through a couple of extra steps, you can actually end up with like 150,000 United miles out of 90,000 SPG. But again, the fact that you can only buy 30,000 SPG per account makes this a lot trickier. And not to mention there's multiple additional steps. So if you want the easy way, Choice Points is probably the way to go, but you got to take action by November 12th.
Yeah, one more thing on this, like you talked about SPG, Marriott, Aeroplan is also offering a 30% bonus when you convert your hotel points into their miles. We're not really focusing on that because the choice in United play is just much more straightforward, much more valuable, but something to consider as well. If you've maybe got some, Aeroplan miles hanging out, then you could augment those by transferring some hotel points if you have them.
Yeah, the only thing I don't know, I didn't look into this beforehand. Based on everything that we've talked about, this should work roughly the same. I just don't know what the ratio for Choice Points into Aeroplan points are. If it's 5,000 equals 2,500, then it's the same deal as the United. There's not a lot of reasons why you would pick Aeroplan over United. United generally has lower taxes and fees. The one exception there is I think in some cases Aeroplan beats United with Star Alliance pricing. So if you're using partner airlines, they charge the same price as if you're flying on Air Canada, whereas United tends to move those prices up between 10 and 15,000 miles compared to flying on United metal. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm not 100% sure on the Choice Points to Aeroplan ratio, but might be an opportunity. And especially, again, if you just need a few additional points to top up your Aeroplan, this is a way that you can do it at a better deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, got a quick listener question from Alice Sweet in Baltimore, Maryland. And Alice is asking about what's going on with American Express and this statement that they've made about essentially what comes down to clamping down on manufactured spending practices. So American Express has come out and said that they have the ability to shut down your ability to earn points, redeem points. They can cancel your cards if you're really doing manufactured type spending things that they ultimately think are outside the spirit of the program. So this is, you want to avoid large gift card purchases, frequent gift card purchases with vendors that trigger bonus categories, abnormally large purchases with bonus categories, especially if there's like a sign that's outside of your ability to actually make those purchases. If they essentially are running the numbers and saying, okay, this person, why are
their income is 30,000
and buying $15,000 worth of stuff. So I guess the moral of the story here is with Amex membership rewards, you want to be careful about any manufactured spending practices. And I would say just don't do it. I don't know, especially if you have a lot of miles to protect.
Well, I think so. First of all, if you're at risk from this, you know who you are. There's no question that like the people that they are after with this. And by the way, let me step back one step further to answer Alice's question. This is not a change. This is more or less just a more public statement of their existing policy. So all of these programs, they're in a great position in terms of control. They own the currency. They can take it away at any time. They can cancel. They can change the prices. It's like the perfect monopoly situation for loyalty programs. So this doesn't really change what Amex has the right to do. What they've done is they've published in their terms and conditions a little bit more explicit warning to people that are gaming the system, saying if you are just really, really ramping up the manufactured spending, we reserve the right to cancel your cards, take away your points, etc. But again, you know who you are. If you are like occasionally going out to buy a $500 Visa gift card at an office supply store to finish meeting your spending requirement, that's not what's going to get you. What's going to get you is if you're going through every reward and you're using like a shopping portal to buy $5,000 or $10,000 worth of gift cards at once and having them shipped to your house, and then going to Walmart to try and withdraw the money or buying money orders. That is where you're going to be attracting the wrong kind of attention. So I think just to kind of wrap up and answer the question, this is not something that 99% of people need to worry about. Amex loves you if you spend money on their card, pay off the purchases each month. But the big ones that you want to make sure you're avoiding are don't go buy something and return it, especially around meeting a minimum spend requirement. Mm-hmm. If you're going to buy a gift card, the safe way to do it is to not do it online because it's harder for them to track. If you go to Staples or Walmart or any grocery store and buy a Visa gift card, it shows up as Walmart and they think you bought a bunch of other stuff. Buy something else so it doesn't come out to around, $500 or whatever. But the super high ticket online gift card purchases of $5,000 or $10,000 or more at a time and buying a, $5,000 TV, getting your bonus and then returning it 3 weeks later, those are the things that are going to get you in trouble. All right. Thank you very much for the question. If you have a question you'd like to have us answer on the show, you can send it in. There is a link on the show notes for asking a question on the show, and we would love to hear from you. Next up, we've got really good news on American Airlines miles being able to redeem for Etihad Business and First Class. So this is something that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the show. Super frustrating. Etihad had basically blocked out all of their premium cabin award space to partner airlines, in particular American. That's where a lot of people are redeeming for Etihad flights. They've got a great chart and really good rates. And Etihad has one of the best business and especially first class products on the market today. And so at the moment, this is not totally sorted out. If you are calling American Airlines in the US, you're probably still going to have trouble finding some of those seats. Mm-hmm. But at least temporarily, the New Zealand ticket office has the ability to find Etihad first class seats. As soon as I saw this story, I went and jumped on 2 different bookings that we have in the queue where we are waiting on those Etihad seats and successfully found first class tickets. Right now, the availability from the US to Abu Dhabi is still really limited. There's nothing, but that's actually matching what I'm seeing on Etihad's website. So I don't think the fact that the New Zealand folks couldn't find those is a glitch. It's just that the seats aren't there. On the way back, Abu Dhabi to a bunch of different destinations in the US. They fly to Washington, D.C. They fly to New York twice. They fly to Chicago. They fly to San Francisco. Actually, no, they canceled San Francisco.
I thought they just toned down they're making that just like Dallas?
A couple of days ago, actually. Okay, the last flight, I think, was the 30th. Los Angeles is still there, and they still fly to Dallas, but that's ending in March of next year. But anyways, if you call the New Zealand American Airlines ticket reservation office, you can use Skype to make that phone call. It's not super expensive. Their hold times are short. I think I spent about $4 on a 30-minute conversation getting through all the details, but they can now find business and first class awards and put them on hold for you. So that's really good news for folks with American Miles.
Yeah, man. So speaking of good news, transitioning to some slightly not good news, British Airways looks like they're going to make some changes in 2018. Looks like they're going to, it looks like Avios programs are going to combine. So that means Iberia and British Airways. Looks like those are going to become one currency, which, I don't really know what to think about that. I mean, what we were talking about earlier is that could simplify some things, but it could also, decrease the amount of arbitrage and real opportunities picking and choosing. And the thing that is a little bit more worrisome about what we heard is they talked about progressively introducing dynamic pricing in 2018. So what that really means with Avios is it could look a little bit more like SkyMiles, where they just kind of pick and choose whatever the hell price they want, as opposed to sticking to that, you're flying from here to here, how many miles is it? That's how much it costs. So I guess we'll just kind of have to stay tuned for what they mean by progressively rolling that out.
Yeah, and one thing to mention, this is not a public, massive press release so IAG, which is British Airways' parent company, made an investor presentation, and somebody, bless your soul, in the Points and Miles community went through a 300 board presentation of slides and found one slide that talked about their strategy.
The future of Avios.
The future of Avios. Yeah. So this is not something that they're at least making an effort to make public. Somebody just kind of dug this up. As far as part one, the program's combining, the big things that are helpful right now is that there's some different partners. So we don't know if that's going to change. That wasn't clear from the presentation. But, for example, British Airways partners with Alaska Airlines and Aer Lingus. Iberia partners with Royal Air Maroc. And there's a couple of others that they have that British Airways doesn't. So the fact that you've got different partner airlines can be an advantage, where maybe you want to move Avios points to the Iberia program to book with Royal Air Maroc, or maybe you want to book with Aer Lingus, so you move them to British Airways. The other thing is that Iberia tends to have lower taxes on some of the redemptions. And you and I took advantage of that last year when we flew back from Barcelona to JFK. We paid 20,000 points for that one way. And the difference in taxes was over $100. It was like we paid about $30 and we could have paid about $130 with British Airways. So that's where the value is there. And as far as the dynamic pricing, we just don't know. Hopefully they can't figure it out.
Yeah, by the way, as far as dynamic pricing goes, I think that's just business jargon for companies giving themselves the wiggle room to charge whatever they want, whenever they want. We experienced that at our community here in Austin, Texas, where we live, where they've got some bullshit about dynamic pricing, which essentially means that they can just try to raise your rent 90% and just say, oh, it's the pricing mechanism. Oh, it's just...
we didn't make the program.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Next up, I'm excited about this one. We're back to good news. Every month, Air France, KLM, Flying Blue program releases promo awards, which are discounted award tickets to select destinations. They basically pick a subset of cities that are going to have promotional pricing for a period of typically 1 month. So this round of promo awards, booking is from November 1st to November 30th. So you've got all of the month of November to make your reservations, and travel is for February 1st to February 28th. Now, the big deal about this one, this is better than past coverage that we've had of promo awards because there are 4 North American cities that are discounted for economy. And recently, a lot of them have been business class, which is nice too, but this makes Flying Blue for select cities in North America one of the best deals out there to get to Europe. And so we've got Boston, Houston, San Francisco, and Vancouver. So we got 1 East Coast, 1 in the middle, and 2 West Coast cities, all of which are going to be 18,750 miles one way or 37.5 round trip to Europe. That is significantly lower than pretty much any other program. The only exception there is going to be, like I said, Avios. If you're on the East Coast already, there's some ways that maybe you pay 20,000 points. Right. But even then, it's not better. So for sure, for the West Coasters in San Francisco and Vancouver, or folks that can position to one of those airports, the price to get to Europe is dramatically cheaper under this deal. A few other notables here that I went through all the other regions. So Southeast Asia, if you're headed, and these are all originating from Europe. So the first set.
Hey,
Boston,
by the way,
Houston,
sorry to cut you off, man, but Europe to Mumbai. Our listener, our friendly Dutch listener, who is looking at ways to hack premium travel to India. One of these right here. Yeah. Europe to Mumbai, 30,000 miles one way in premium economy.
Yeah. So the ones for outside of the U.S. are all from Europe to these destinations. So the ones I'm going to go through right now, the ones from the U.S. cities are to anywhere in Europe. So Boston, Houston, San Francisco, and Vancouver are basically to any city in Europe.
Probably see a lot of availability between Paris and Amsterdam.
Yep. And that's where you're going to connect, because this is going to be generally on Air France and KLM. Although I think it has to be on Air France and KLM. So I don't think any of these prices are going to apply to flights operated by Delta. Maybe Delta, because they've got like a full code share. They're pretty tight with Air France. Anyways, moving on to some other regions. Once you're in Europe, if you want to make this into a round the world trip, the rest of these are all premium economy discounts. So Europe to Ho Chi Minh City is 40,000 points one way for premium economy. That's Saigon as well for some folks out there, Vietnam. And 40,000 points is roughly the economy price for most programs. So that's a really nice deal. A little bit nicer seat, a little more space, a little better food. Like you said, also Mumbai. So Europe to Mumbai, 50% off premium economy. That makes it a 30,000 point one-way trip. That's a pretty long flight, so that's a really nice one. A little bit shorter, getting to the Middle East, going to Beirut, Lebanon is 50% off premium economy. That comes out to 20,000 points. And to Cairo, Egypt is 25% off premium economy, which comes out to 30,000 points. All pretty good deals. I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, and I have experience flying Air France premium economy on a long haul flight, and it was game changing. It was a quantum leap from economy. It was a much better experience.
Let's talk about JetBlue briefly. We've got a kind of maybe you should care, maybe you shouldn't. Don't read too much of the other blog posts on this one.
Yeah, so getting to the point, you can transfer Amex points to JetBlue with 25% bonus. There are some situations you may want to do this, but it's not a super sexy deal, but you will get a little bit better of a redemption rate. So JetBlue points, to give you some context, are generally worth between 1 cent per point and 1.9. So what this could look like with the bonus is booking through Amex versus transferring and booking through JetBlue. One of the examples we've got here is $320 flight on JetBlue is going to cost 32,000 membership rewards, where you can get that flight for maybe 22,500 if you transfer to JetBlue. But I don't know. Once again, this isn't something you want to speculatively do. If you got a flight picked out and it makes sense, I guess so. And one thing we mentioned earlier was premium cabin stuff. So like if you're thinking about flying Mint, generally a little bit better redemption. The points are worth a little bit more when you use them for premium cabin stuff.
Yeah, and so to just kind of put this in context, it's a 25% bonus, but the normal ratio is 1,000 Amex points equals 800 JetBlue points. So it's normally a really crappy ratio. Right. This just brings it up to 1-to-1. So the math is easy. 1 Amex point becomes 1 JetBlue point. On average, we, with Amex, and this includes a lot of business and first class bookings, so this is not necessarily the same deal as what you should think about for economy, but on average, across millions and millions of points redeemed, we've been getting 5 cents per point for Amex points. Right. So if you take a look at, you're never going to even come close to that with JetBlue. No. Now, if you got a ton of Amex points, I guess the bottom line is take a look at booking through Amex Travel, because you get 1 cent per point anyways. And if you do that, you earn miles on the flight. But when I went and checked, I looked at a flight that was like $300 roughly, and Amex Travel was charging $30,000. JetBlue was charging $22,000. So there's a little bit of savings. Maybe if you got a couple of travelers, it's worth taking a look. And this transfer bonus ends on November 30th. I would not transfer points unless you've got a JetBlue flight all queued up and ready to go.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, we've got one more little bit of good news. United Airlines had their devaluation that kicked in last week. November 1st was the initiation for the new award chart. And kind of funny how they really got rah-rah about how great their new valuation was that was truly just raising the prices. Right. Except they didn't even mention in their initial release something that was recently discovered. At least I didn't see it. For United flights that are not within North America, so flights within a single region outside of the U.S. and Canada, they are offering flights under 800 miles for 8,000 points instead of the typical, usually within a region is going to be 12,500. So a pretty significant discount, more than a 30% discount on flights within the same region. So some examples here, like Johannesburg to Cape Town, instead of 12,500, it's going to be 8,000. Right. Zurich to London, Beijing to Hong Kong. Anything that's in the same region, you're going to have the opportunity to book this at a discount. And this is something that prices out right on the United Airlines website. So this is really good, because overall, there is not any program in Star Alliance that offers good deals on short flights. So in one world, you've always got Avios points. If you've got a short direct flight, you can book those much cheaper using British Airways than using American miles. And so that's always been there, for at least a couple of years. It's been the case in One World Alliance. Now United is becoming a really attractive option here for short flights within the same region for Star Alliance. So I'm really happy to see this.
Yeah, man. Speaking of things you're happy to see, in our random news section here, good news for Americans wanting to travel to Brazil. We're this January going to see e-visas. So what that means is no more mailing your passport to a consulate in this really convoluted process. It's really difficult to get a Brazilian visa. So Americans, along with I think Aussies, Canadians, and the Japanese, are going to see this benefit. So I believe it's January 28th, 2018 is when Brazil is going to start doing this. We'll see if they can execute on that timeline. But this is really nice. It doesn't really affect me for the foreseeable future, because I think I've got another 4 or 5 years on my visa, but definitely the Brazilian visa process just sucks. So this is nice.
Man, so I didn't even get the benefit. So I know you had to drive to Chicago.
I had to drive to Chicago because they messed stuff up and they lost my passport, and I had to, it was pure luck. It took me from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Chicago, which should be about 2 hours, hour and a half. Yeah. It took me 9 hours to get there because I drove through a snowstorm, ice storm. And then when I got to Chicago, I went there to the consulate, and they're like, we don't have it. And I literally was just like, well, can you look over there? Have you checked over there? And then they found it, and I got my visa. But
The things people will do to travel to the marvelous land of Brazil.
Right? Yeah.
Man, I mean, my experience, I had sort of short-term plans that just popped up to go to Brazil without doing any advanced planning in the U.S. I was in Colombia. I had to go to the embassy in Bogota. I had plans to go to a different city in Colombia. I had to give them my passport and just be passport free in Colombia for like 2 weeks while they processed it. And then they mailed it to me in Cartagena, which was just overall a terrifying experience. I thought it was, and I couldn't fly, so I had to take the bus in between those cities, which is a terrifying bus ride. So this is such good news. And that also was in 2010. So I'm up for renewal in less than 2 years here. And so I'm really, really happy to see this e-visa process from Brazil. Hope everything goes smoothly, but apply online 72 hours later. I hope that that turns into some bookings for us to Brazil, because I really love helping people travel to Brazil. All right, last big piece of news, and then we've got a couple items in the rundown today. Google has announced that they are shutting down airfare data for travel search engines. This is actually something that hits pretty close to home for us because we have some internal tools that we use for our booking service that run on Google's QPX Express API. So basically, Google in 2010 purchased ITA Matrix, which is an awesome site. They use the technology to run Google Flights, and Google Flights is faster, cleaner, but ITA Matrix is really powerful. It lets you search all kinds of different data points. Well, when they went through the Department of Justice to get that acquisition approved, the DOJ said you need to keep this API open for at least 5 years. Really wish they would have said 10. Really wish they would have had some cojones and said permanently, but 5 years, it's been more than 5 years, and Google's just announced that they're going to shut this down. I think the big thing, I mean, this is not going to destabilize Abroaders because most of our business is around booking with points, but there are a lot of really cool travel startups that run. I mean, this is the API that you use if you want to help people search for flights, if you want to do it in a new way. And I think Google is doing this to take a shot at the bigger ones like Skyscanner. And I think the really big ones have their own technology integrated with the airlines themselves, but any startups...
what does this mean for like a Hipmunk?
They got a lot of funding, so they might be in the major leagues.
They got acquired by somebody, but I don't know if the people that acquired it, I'm not sure how it works. But yeah, nonetheless, there's some tools out there.
Take any really cool travel startup, they started with this. Like anything that happened in the last 5 years, even if it's now a company that has their own technology and they don't need Google or they've got the resources to work around this, they got to the point they're at because they were using this technology. It's really affordable. It's not free. Like we're paying for the API, but they've decided to shut it down because it's going to make it harder for their competition to compete with them on paid flights. And so very disappointed about this.
So much for don't be evil.
Yeah, that's pretty evil. I mean, I don't know how else you could say it. Like, hey, let's screw over a bunch of small companies by taking away data. I don't know.
Yeah, man, that's a bummer. We got a few things just to do a quick little rundown. We'll touch on these quick. First one is there's an Amex offer. You get 20,000 membership rewards for spending $1,000 with KLM. So if you got a flight where maybe KLM would make sense and it's, let's say, $1,000 or more, worth spending an extra, $100, $150 on your flight to get your 20,000 Amex points, because just face value, those are at the least worth a couple $100 and probably more like $400 or $500 in travel.
Yep. So that's a really good deal. Etihad is canceling their flights to Dallas. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Blames American. Big surprise. I don't think American really has much to do with why they're canceling it.
It was a code share issue.
Yeah, they're just angry at each other because Americans kind of beating the drum about competition and wanting Congress to basically block foreign airlines from competing.
Especially the Gulf carriers.
Yep, especially the Gulf carriers. So anyways, that's one fewer route for Etihad. That's going to follow, as I said, San Francisco that was canceled recently. So fewer options to try Etihad's product and connect in the Middle East. The thing that I love about Etihad and Qatar is that they've got really affordable, reasonable pricing through American Airlines. And the Middle East is awesome for connecting to Africa. It's great for connecting to Europe. I mean, obviously, it can be nice to go straight to Europe, but really good premium product. So it sucks to see Dallas go down because Chicago is kind of the only middle America hub that Etihad flies to. So that's a bummer. Last piece of news is that Hilton and Amex have just announced a new credit card. It's not available yet. It's another $450 annual fee card. This is kind of the first hotel card that's diving into that premium market. Yeah. And when it gets a little bit closer, it looks like this card is going to be released in 2018. So we decided not to dive into too much on the details, but we're going to link in the show notes to a couple of posts that talk about it. Because Amex doesn't have any super strict policies around cards, this is not really something that you need to plan on in terms of like with Chase, if there's a card you want, that maybe affects your other applications right now. But this looks like for a small set of people that travel with Hilton and value elite status, it looks like the benefits, you can get a lot of that $450 annual fee back and get some great benefits. So it could be a great card for some people. A lot of bloggers out there are saying it's too generous, and that's interesting. And another reason I didn't want to get too much into it, because by the time it comes out, maybe they've slashed some of these benefits.
Sure, we'll know when they actually have the website up where you can apply and get the card, and they've got their bullet points on what the benefits are.
All right, that's going to do it for news and updates. We will be back next Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard. Thank you so much for being with us. Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.